Everybody say square right? Right call? I'm calling to order the meeting of the Town of Pittsboro Board of Commissioners for Monday, August the 8th, 2022. And as we generally do, we will start our meeting with a moment of silence. Thank you very much. Commissioner Farrell, would you lead us in the pledge?
Certainly. Would everyone rise, please? Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
Thank you. You have the agenda before you. I will receive a motion either to approve the agenda as proposed or modifications to it. Is there a motion? Thank you. Commissioner Shipp.
Second.
Seconded by Commissioner Farrell. Those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries unanimously. I now request a motion to go into closed session pursuant to North Carolina General Statutes 143, 318, 11, A3, and A6. May I have that motion?
So moved.
Moved by Mayor Pro-Tem Baldwin. Seconded by Commissioner Bonitz. Those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries unanimously. At this time, we'll ask the members of the. Oh, we do? Okay, I'm sorry. back in open session now. The closed session report will come a little later in the agenda. And the motion to go out of closed session was made by Mayor Pro-Tem Baldwin, seconded by Commissioner Bonitz, and voted on unanimously. So that brings us then to citizens matters. And the first matter, of course, is the manager updates. Chris Kennedy.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, Madam Mayor. I've got a series of updates for y'all this evening. The first being, I think our most important project we have going right now is the fast track GAC project at the water plant. As the board's aware, and for the public listening in, we had some weather delays. Obviously, when you're having to dig to insert pipe into the ground, that can have certainly its effect if the weather. It didn't seem to rain for months and months and months, and rained about 4 days in a row. So we were unable to get that pipe in the ground prior to our end of July deadline, which we so desired to have. Talking with water plant staff this afternoon to get the latest information, it appears that startup will be this Wednesday. We're hoping to have Calgon, which is the company that does the granular activated carbon and also the manufacturer of our vessels. They're having a representative come in to do their inspection and show how we do the backwash for our staff. They did the back T testing today, and that's 48 hours. So that's a positive sign that the infrastructure is well enough where we can actually go and do the back T testing, because usually that means everything's done. So that's a very positive sign. So the Calgon representative is scheduled to be here on Wednesday. Obviously, if that changes, then our deadline changes. But if he's here on Wednesday, we should start up on Wednesday, the 10th. So very exciting news to get that project online. We continue to provide water to the Chatham Marketplace. Once that project is at the plan is fully done, we will then transition over and have more conversations with Evan and his crew there. Again, can't say thank you enough to their efforts in helping us with that. It's been a really valuable endeavor for us. I think it's helped with our citizens and providing them access to filtered water. We look forward to providing that at an industrial scale in just a couple of days. But just kudos to Evan and his staff. They have taken it on the chin at times, even though we've tried to keep that off of them, with particularly early on. But we are very thankful for them. Update with regard to town hall. We have some COVID issues at town hall right now with a number of employees, and we are a lean staff as it is. So I've made the decision to close town hall for the remainder of this week. Most of our interaction in town hall is folks either meeting with me or paying their utility bill for water and sewer. I have moved my meetings all off site to accommodate that. And for the utility bills just went out this week. So there still will be time. There'll still be all next week. We've also put out the alternative ways where you don't have to come in. Many people don't come in already to pay their bills. We do have ability to pay online. We have direct deposit. Direct deposits will be hard to set up because there's no one there to help set it up right now. But we do over the phone. We also have our drop box. We have a little night box on the side of the drive-through at town hall that we get things. And we also have certainly the old snail mail where you can put a stamp on it and mail it in. So we hope there won't be any lingering effects with staffing, but we felt like it was in the best interest to just go ahead and close it down, hopefully rid ourselves if that's possible, and try to get back and calibrate it again for next Monday. So we'll keep the public informed on that. Colby Sawyer, our public information officer, is going to help us with a lot of that. I'll keep the board informed as well. So if something changes, we'll certainly push that out, but we're thinking the rest of the week and be back to regular business with the doors open and drive-through open next Monday. Let's see here. We continue to make progress on our Sanford force main project. So Wooten is continuing to work hard for us and we're having bi-weekly meetings with them. We're still working through the state. Mr. Metch is helping us with the easements. And so that's coming along. I think we'll have a pretty well or a more substantial update in 2 weeks. But we're really looking forward to putting that all together and getting that out to bid. That's a really important project for us, as this board knows. But things are progressing, and the conversation that Charlie Davis and his folks at Wooten had with the board a few weeks ago, we continue to meet on the schedule as we talked about and continue to hit most of the deadlines that were there. Obviously, I use the term most because we're beholden to the state for some of our things. And so we try to be flexible, but we're working hard to bird dog those projects and keep the state in line with it so we can get expedient approvals and move forward. We have two items coming up that I think the town board and or the public may be interested in. They both happen to be on August 16th, and they both happen to be here at the Ag Center. From 4 to 7, N.C.G.S is doing a roadway presentation regarding the mega site in Moncure for the Triangle Innovation Point.
When is that, Chris?
That's the 16th,
Okay.
from 4 to 7 p.m. And if you can't make it on the 16th, they're going to do an identical presentation on August 18th at 6 p.m. via Zoom. So if you don't want to come in person, you can come on the 18th. If you are here on the 16th and you come between 4 and 7, I'd encourage you to also stay around for our Downtown Vision Forum that the town's hosting at the Ag Center where we sit. And that'll be from 6 to 8 p.m. So if you come to DOT, maybe come to DOT between 4 and 5, and maybe join us at from 6 to 8. Look forward to that. Our Downtown Vision Plan is a 2014 vintage. Obviously, the town has made several notable investments in downtown of late, one of which is on the agenda tonight that we're excited to have on the agenda for downtown efforts. And so we encourage any of those who are interested to attend one or both of those. As we talked about at the last meeting, the governor is going to lift the state of emergency for the state related to the COVID pandemic on August 15th. So myself, Colby Sawyer, our PIO, and Laura Lee here at the Ag Center, we're going to work together on revising our setup a little bit. We feel like we've got a pretty good setup with the board, how we're situated now. We still intend to have the stream to YouTube and the Zoom as a hybrid component. But we will at that point have to allow anyone who wishes to come to have a seat in the room. So that will shift us a little bit. So we're going to be putting our heads together and trying to figure out what's the best setup for the board. So we appreciate the kinks that will likely be ensued with that as we try to figure out what's best to try to accommodate a hybrid environment like we have here, but also have a traditional good old 2019 board meeting where the board's here and the public's here. So we'll work through those and we're working with staff, both our team and the county's team, to make that work. So as we go through that, we appreciate any feedback the board may have as we go through, and we'll adjust accordingly. The last thing I have for you this evening is we had an adjustment to the minutes on the consent agenda earlier today. Commissioner Shipp clarification, and I think it was really more of a grammatical fixing and transposing of words. So no real impact on the overall minutes or the effect of them, probably some cleaner language. So that has been adjusted. So when we get to the consent agenda, I think the board is free to adopt that without any other, condition or caveat. I think you can just adopt it because I've adjusted those and sent those to the board. So unless there's a concern with how that was adjusted, I think you're free to proceed with one single motion without any condition or caveat. And that is the extent of my updates for you this evening. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you.
May I make one comment?
Yes.
Mr. Kennedy, the one suggestion that I have for returning to in-person meetings here would be to have similar setup to the original town hall meeting room, which you never saw in operation, but
Right.
the public in front of the
Mhm.
board as opposed to people sitting behind us. That's better.
Okay.
That's a larger space than just this.
Yeah, I think we're probably going to go in next door and determine how that best works. It is, and I welcome your feedback now if you have it. It's been my understanding the board is not really in favor of being on stage. And certainly there's certain meetings where that makes more sense than not. If you have a very large crowd, then I think it works to be elevated. But it's my understanding the board prefers to be at the same level. So that's the feedback that I've received in the past and how we plan to work forward. But I appreciate the the comment because we will definitely work to have people in front of you.
That's correct.
Very good. All right. With respect to my update, I did attend the Climate Change Advisory Committee last Thursday. Very technical discussion about the Duke Power letters and public comment on the Duke Power plan to reduce carbon footprint. And I have no other comments or concerns to report. Mayor Pro-Tem Baldwin.
No, I don't have any to report at this time. I think Commissioner Shipp will do the AHOC. I fell asleep. So once we have those minutes, I will send it out.
Okay. Thank you.
Commissioner Bonitz. And you're welcome to add anything to, I know you were on the call for the Chatham County Climate Change meeting, and I thank you for that, because there was one point at which I had to beep off, but if there's anything that, I mean, it was all a very technical conversation.
No, I don't think I would add anything. It was relevant. The record is there. I believe they actually have a recording.
Yeah.
I would encourage folks who are particularly concerned about or interested in Duke Power's proposal for carbon emission reductions. They can tune into the Chatham County Climate Change Advisory Committee's record on the county website. And no other updates. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Commissioner Farrell.
PBA, I'll be meeting with them Wednesday of this week. They've been off on a little vacation, about like all of us. Concerns, I've got a couple of things. I don't know if I should bring it up during the consent, but I guess it may just be a little quicker just to mention this right now is the planning board. I have a gentleman that's interested in being on the ETJ as a regular, or if Charity Mize is not going to take it, he would take the alternate.
Okay.
His name is Shannon Brady, and I'll give you his number after the meeting.
And Madam Mayor, if I may respond to Commissioner Farrell's comment on that. That item we have on the consent agenda for the our appointed boards is to provide a refresher for the Board of Commissioners about where your boards stand. And I thought about it earlier today, and I'm happy to revise it just for your better records. We also appoint the ABC Commission Board, and I probably should have put that on there, so I will revise that, to put that into the record as well. But knowing as we are looking to appoint a task force for affordable housing, we've got and that's a finite term. There's a task, and when that's task complete, the board disbands. And then we've got the future land use plan steering committee that we've had some conversations about. So for the board to consider who may be on that. We also have, a number of, perpetual boards like the Parks and Recreation Advisory Board and such. And so I felt like that rather than saying, hey, here's where the vacancies are, that we just give you a full complement of the list. And as you consider, people on certain boards or other boards, you go, oh, I forgot they were on that board, and I don't want to maybe strap them too thin by putting them on this board as well, or maybe there's conflict of interest, whatever it may be. And so we just felt like that would be helpful for the board to see that. You can certainly go on the website, hopefully, and find it if you wanted to, but we felt like pocketing it together, putting it into one little package so the board could see, and then allow the conversation to emanate from there. And if you wish to make some calls, find some appointees, we can always add them on the agenda for Mr. Brady. If he wants to be on the board, you don't have to fix all the rest of the boards. You can just appoint him like we normally do. So.
Okay.
Commissioner Farrell, I appreciate you bringing that up, and I'd actually like that. If we could pull that off on the consent agenda for discussion further.
Okay.
But I'm sorry to interrupt.
No, that's fine. The only other issue, and I think we had a water leak on the old Golston Road maybe last week or the week before. They're still having some very dirty water. I know those lines are, I believe they're probably 2-inch old lines that run around there, and it goes down Austin Chapel Church Road to Woodbury. I know we've been putting this off because I've talked about it for 10 years or more, but I really need to get these guys some clean water and some pipes or something, because it's terrible down that old Golston Road.
Okay, I will, obviously, if we've had a leak, I'm sure Adam is aware of it.
Yeah.
I like to, unless it's a significant line, and not saying that's insignificant, but significant as in like it's Hillsborough Street.
Mhm.
I let those guys deal with that without having to alert me to everything with
Yeah.
it. So
I think there's still 2-inch line down through there, I imagine.
we have a lot of 2-inch galvanized pipe in town. And so that's certainly on our radar, and try to find a way to get that replaced. Because the more that we can eliminate dead end lines, and the more that we can put in PVC pipe, that will cure a lot of those water quality issues from a inequality in terms of a color and smell.
Thank you. That's all I have, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Commissioner Shipp.
Sure. So I was not able to attend the AAF meeting last week, but I was able to have the honor, I think, to attend the Advanced Leadership Corps at the UNC School of Government. And so that was a week-long program, Sunday to Friday. And it's the 11th time they've run that. There were 17 of us, and just really good week of training and bonding with people from all across the state, county commissioners, city and town councils, and school board members taking part in that program. So fantastic program, and it continue on with some other coaching. So really glad to be part of that. For EDC, I don't know if you saw it today, but Durham Coca-Cola Bottling announced that they're going to relocate to Chatham County at 64 and 751. So they're going to consolidate from Durham and Lee County in Chatham County by 2024. So that'll be about 200 jobs coming to Chatham County. And then we have a meeting next Tuesday, August 17th. For that. I just want to reiterate again about the Downtown Vision Forum, Tuesday, August 16th from 6 to 8 here. That's a great opportunity to get it put in on that. And then I know we know this and it's on the look ahead, but our meeting minutes are delinquent going back to October, not completely, but need to finish those out. And then just a follow-up on a previous concern. It's Farrell had Lori's second birthday party at Hunt Farm Community Park, and it was great. And there is trash cans and recycling cans of a large size there. So thank you, Katie.
And the fence.
And the fence, which is even more fantastic.
Yes. So when we talked several meetings ago about some of the concerns that we were having with the functionality of the splash pad, because kids were doing what kids do. They were grabbing handfuls of mulch and carrying it with them wherever they were going. And turns out that ended up more so in our water system than we would like. So not only from a safety perspective of kids running out into the street, perhaps. So there's a containment factor there, but also to try to reduce some of that crossover from some of the mulch playground areas into the splash pad itself. There's probably some social conditioning to improve there. But at the same time, it's been a good improvement to have that fence there. So I appreciate Katie and all her hard work on that, and certainly her working with Chatham Park to get some of those things done.
And they planned it and did it with only a 1-day shutdown. Impressive.
Commissioner Shipp, can you tell us any more about the Cook bottling plant at 64 and 751? I mean, do we know which corner it's going to be?
I don't know. I can find out more. It's 175,000 square foot building, but I'm not sure what the crossover there.
It's not directly in our purview, but I'm curious which of those large tracks it's going to be on. It wasn't apparent to me looking at the GIS map which one it would be.
Yeah, I'll try and find out.
Thank you.
Commissioner Vose.
Neither TARPO nor the Arts Council have met since our last meeting, so I don't have anything there. By way of concern, I would just say, add that the parking lot over at Davenport's Carpe Diem, where the parking lot comes to the road, is, I think, about the worst that we have in town. So I thought I'd bring that up.
All right. Under public comment, we have no one signed up this evening.
We did.
We do
had,
have one.
Ms. Turner.
Yes, Beth Turner.
Let me go through the participants here. And Ms. Turner, if you're on the call tonight, would you raise your hand, please? On the Zoom feature?
That might be there. Yeah, I think it is.
Madam Mayor, I'm not seeing anybody with their
Well,
hand raised or under her
I
name.
do, let me introduce it then. I do know that she and another neighbor there on Circle Drive had a concern about the loudness of a compressor at Wheeland Used Cars. And that compressor is extremely loud. You can hear it not only at the residences on Circle Drive, but also at the marketplace. And I know that the neighbors, Beth included, and a woman I met today at the marketplace were both very concerned about the loudness of that. So it needs to be enclosed. It needs to be baffled so that there's peace and quiet in the community.
I noticed that as well, so I appreciate you bringing that up, Mayor Perry. And I noticed it, oddly enough, on a Sunday.
Yes.
And it seems like perhaps they might save themselves on their power bill if they turn it off on weekends and just put a cheap timer on the device, plus saving the noise.
Well, and from what I understand, that is for the operation of car repairs, and that it could very easily be turned off at night as well as on the weekends. So since we don't have Beth this evening, if that's a misstatement of anything, we will try to correct that.
Madam Mayor, I will have Shorty or somebody on his, that's usually where we start with noise complaints.
Okay.
I'll have Shorty or one of his folks to reach out to Ms. Turner and see what we can do to try to.
I'll also say, I mean,
Mitigate
I've
that.
heard that from inside the marketplace, and there's partial, as soon as they finish that building, then they build sort of a part, they put the compressor outside, put sort of a partial enclosure around it, but it's just metal.
Probably just reverberates even louder with that.
It's the same,
Probably a visual
but
improvement,
it's not even complete, so it's not bad.
maybe attempted a visual improvement, but
All right, very good. You have now before you the consent agenda consisting of 9 items, and there was discussion. I believe Mr. Bonitz was suggesting that we take the minutes. I'm sorry, which,
Madam Mayor, I think Mr. Bonitz had asked to have the item number 8, which is
yes,
the Pittsboro Advisory Board vacancies and other related
yes,
appointments.
yes, okay.
And I'd also like to pull item number 2, SUB 2022-02, the Webb preliminary plat for discussion.
Yes, okay.
That's the annexation I'm talking about.
So there's an adjusted agenda because we pulled
Oh,
the PPA, some of that's off, so.
If we're pulling the plat, then do we not also need to pull the annexation? No? Okay. All right. So with the exception of the preliminary plat and the advisory board vacancies and other related appointments, is there a motion to approve the other items under the consent agenda?
we're moving on to old business.
Yes. Is there a motion to consent?
So moved.
Moved by Bonitz, Commissioner Bonitz, seconded by
Second.
Commissioner Vose. Those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
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 Those opposed, motion carries unanimously. So we're moving the Del Webb preliminary plat to old business as well as the advisory board. Okay. We have no public hearings tonight, so we will therefore then go into old business and approach first the Del Webb preliminary plat brought forward from consent. Do you want to express your concerns, Commissioner Bonitz,
Oh,
or,
yes.
or do you want to have an introduction to that agenda item
Well,
first?
it would be very helpful to have staff introduce that would allow me to bring my notes up.
Chris Kennedy, did you want to start in on that description?
I'm going to allow Molly Boyle to do that for us.
Okay,
Molly, I think you're promoted now.
Can everyone hear me okay?
yes, thank you.
Yes.
Okay, great. Hold on just one second. I'm having a little bit of trouble with my mouse here. Let me see. And I don't seem to have the ability to share my screen yet, but I can just talk and give the presentation verbally if that's fine with everybody.
Yes.
Yes, that's fine.
Okay, hang on one second. All right, so this is, of course, the Del Webb at Chatham Park preliminary plat phases 1 through 4. And let's see here if I can get this pulled up. So this is a major subdivision preliminary plat request because under the old subdivision ordinance and also under the new unified development ordinance, anything more than 5 lots that isn't an exempt subdivision is considered a major subdivision preliminary plat. And it's important to note that this subdivision is not subject to the new unified development ordinance. If the board remembers, this project is subject to the approved special use permit, which the board would have heard sometime last year. And also the special use permit makes it clear that the project is subject to the old subdivision and zoning ordinances, so not the unified development ordinance. And another thing that's important to note is that although the project is titled Del Webb at Chatham Park, it's not within the Chatham Park Plan Development District. So the project is not subject to the Chatham Park Master Plan or the elements or any small area plans or anything like that. And again, tonight we're focusing on Del Webb North. So this is phases 1 through 4. If the board remembers, the entire project area is about 700 odd acres. We're only focusing on phases 1 through 4 tonight. So this is the northern portion, which is just north of the proposed Chatham Parkway extension. And the subdivision is proposing 844 single-family residential lots. And this is an age-restricted community. So there's going to be 80% of those units will have a resident age 55 or older. And in terms of the subdivision, water is proposed by the town of Pittsboro, and the applicant intends to serve the project with sewer via Chatham Park's portion of the Sanford line. And so one thing that's also important to note about that is that the sewer does not have to be available at the time of preliminary plat approval, but it has to be available at the time of construction drawing approval. So theoretically, staff could review the construction drawings, but we wouldn't be able to issue approval until that sewer is available, but it doesn't have to be available tonight. For open space, the applicant was required to provide 15% open space, and they're providing more than that, which is about 20%. And for the public parkland requirement, the applicant will pay a fee in lieu prior to recordation of the final plat. And in terms of transportation and access, public roads are proposed. Each of the lots will have access via individual driveways, and that will also be available for parking as well as garages. And finally, staff reviewed the proposal for consistency with the various Pittsboro strategic plans. So the bike and ped plan, the comprehensive transportation plan, and the Parks and Rec master plan, and staff found it to be consistent with all of those. And so with that, if the board has any questions for myself or for the applicant, I'll go ahead and take those now.
Commissioner Bonitz, did you have questions?
Thank you. Thank you very much, Molly Boyle, for that presentation. That was helpful. This was first of all, I just want to say I appreciate staff diligent attention to this. I recognize that this is an awkward situation. The plan was kind of shoehorned in under the old subdivision ordinances and not subject to our UDO, recognizing all of that. I am curious to hear a little bit more about parkland requirement paid by fee in lieu, if you could elaborate for us on that. And I'll mention three concerns all at once and then let you go, if I may. I tried to find what is the situation with regards to the sidewalks that were discussed along the outer perimeter of the project. And then the third item, I'd like to ask some questions about phasing, how that phasing will coincide with related projects that are not directly related to this approval. As you mentioned, the sewer force main is one, and the Chatham Parkway South project is the other. So it's hard for me to keep all of these things. I imagine it's quite a challenge for staff to keep all of these things in mind, but I appreciate your responses to those items.
Sure. So to start with, could you recap those really quickly? Because I got them all, but so I know that there was the sidewalk and there was the concern about the phasing. And what was the first one?
Parkland requirements or Parks and Recreation.
Okay, yes. So the applicant, and they can discuss this more, there's going to be a private amenity that's offered in the subdivision that's available for the residents. But of course, there's still a public parkland requirement. So that was the idea, is that, if you're providing a private amenity, that's fine, but there is a public requirement. And so that's why there was, and I believe you'll see that shown on the overall subdivision plan. And Bryant can also discuss that too, if you have any questions about that. But since that wasn't available to the public, then the public parkland fee still required.
And Molly, if I may interject on that as well, to complement what you've offered. Commissioner Bonds, Katie and I have been involved in those conversations as well with Chatham Park. And it was upon mine and Katie's recommendation that we actually do the fee in lieu, knowing that a Del Webb project is somewhat encapsulates itself. And knowing that the close proximity of the greater park or the sports complex, just almost contiguous to the site, that we felt like it was appropriate to take the proceeds of the fee in lieu and invest that into that sports complex to make that come to closer or quicker fruition for the town, knowing that Del Webb's going to obviously provide internal services for its own, homeowners and such. But we felt like it was prudent to collect the fee in lieu and use that towards that sports complex or other parks in the general vicinity that will be more publicly accessible than just an HOA funded park. So to answer questions on that, probably myself or Katie would be most appropriate.
Okay, and did you name that the greater park? This is the nearby sports complex?
Mm-hmm.
That's what staff call greater park?
Well, no, just like a more regional park, more expansive in terms of, it's not a neighborhood park. It's something that serves a much larger concentric circle.
Got it, yes, okay.
We do hope it's great though.
Yeah, it's gonna be, it will. No doubt about it. Yes, that would be good, and it might be good to learn a little bit more about that because, when I hear age restricted, I think that community will, they'll not be without their own demands for parks and recreation. And I understand that pickleball is very popular, and I remember that pickleball was mentioned. Perhaps it was in the small area plan as something that might be on the 40-acre sports complex. So The related question, since I believe Chatham Park investors are with us tonight for this matter, is that right? Are they
I believe so, but
online?
Yes, they are present.
Okay, so a related question for gentle people from Chatham Park investors who are representing Del Webb. What can we hear about the nearby neighborhood 40-acre sports complex with its potential pickleball courts?
if I may intercept that briefly, certainly don't want to detract away from what they will respond to. So Ken Eagle, legal representation, has sent to the town. We got it right before the last meeting. And it was partly in anticipation of some of the conversation we had had about Chatham Parkway South and understanding more about the park. And I think that was more of a prompt as other conversation looking more southward. We've been, so northerly focused in many aspects of Chatham Park. So the town is in receipt of basically the dedication of that. Mr. Misc and myself and Katie haven't, I would say, fully reviewed that document yet. But I would say the ball's in our court with that for sure. That Chatham Park has provided that dedication document in order to maybe rest some of the concerns about when that may come and how it may come and such. We have that document in hand.
Excellent. Okay, so it's in staff review, and I won't rush that. That is very reassuring and very good to hear.
That may not answer your full question, but I just wanted to offer that.
Well, let me think through here. No, I think it does address it because that means that we will soon hear from staff about what the next steps might be towards the town seeking grants and partnerships to begin planning and development.
Yes, sir. I mean, one of the key factors, whether we're leveraging property for any number of grant opportunities or things of that nature, is land control. And so having that land control, obviously, there's a fair bit, and we talked about it when we dealt with the North Village Small Area Plan, where we were looking at the reservation of parkland to make sure that we stay on pace at the 1/25 of an acre per unit developed. And so this is a big deposit area of that. And I think ultimately be a really significant park for the town and for the greater area. So we'll be happy to bring that back. And if the board has any questions, happy to try to comb through that with those questions in mind too.
Okay. And the next question goes to the sidewalks along the outer perimeter of the project. Olive oil, I think that you might not have been on the staff when this matter was actually approved and then finally discussed by a differently comprised board.
Mhm.
What was that, November of last year?
Yes, yeah, I joined in January, so that would have been before my time, yes.
So there was conversation at that time about a sidewalk on Sanford Road and concerns about the topography not allowing a conventional sidewalk. And I expressed the hope that we could work past that and find some way still to have pedestrian access along that side of the road. Excuse me, not access, but the pedestrian throughway along the perimeter of the project. So were there further conversations about that?
Not to my knowledge. That might be a good question for the applicant. The ones that I discussed and was aware of were the 5-foot sidewalks on both sides of the interior streets, the 5-foot sidewalks along 15501 in Montreux, Pittsboro, and then the 5-foot sidewalks and or 10-foot multi-use paths on both sides of Horse Ferry. But I wasn't aware of any conversations about one off of Sanford.
Well, 15501 being Sanford Road.
Oh, yeah. But so, and I believe that.
I apologize. I did try and look at the preliminary plat drawings and did not see it, but I didn't have a lot of time to work through it.
Mr. Antrilli, I believe Nick Antrilli was one of the primary folks who was looking at that previously when we dealt with that. I see on the call, we've got Chris Raleigh with Pulte. We've got Kevin Dean, and Kevin does more of the roadway stuff. But Nick, and I may have incorrectly called you out on this one, but would you be happen to be able to maybe show what y'all done or at least speak to it?
It's fine. Yeah, I was engaged with council at that time. And at the time, we were looking at that sidewalk along Sanford Road, and we noticed that there's a pretty significant stream buffer and streams in that area. And so we were, not knowing what would happen in the future, we wanted to have a provision in case we couldn't get the environmental permitting to construct the sidewalk, that we would at least have the ability to do a fee in lieu. Our current plans still show the sidewalk. I think there's a significant portion we feel really comfortable with actually building it, but we won't really know until we go into the environmental permitting portion of the project.
Mr. Antroy, can you repeat your last couple of sentences? You kind of,
When you said significant portion, I lost you after that.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, we've looked at it in a little bit more detail since last time we spoke. And there is a significant portion we feel comfortable building. But we won't really know exactly the limitations of that until we work through the construction drawings portion of the project. So once we get into the construction drawings, we'll have a greater level of detail at that time, especially related to the grading and the environmental impacts. And so what we'll do is we'll end up submitting the environmental impact to the jurisdictions, and we will kind of see where it goes from there. But we still would like to have the ability to do the fee in lieu as originally approved.
The Greenway deviation exhibit does show block the sidewalk.
Good, good. Well, and I hope that the engineering goes well and that the environmental impacts won't be very great, but it occurred to me that we might, and y'all are probably already thinking in this direction, but we might think outside the box a little bit rather than having typical concrete on soil. We might even have a sort of a boardwalk if the grade change is really that severe.
Yeah, we'll be more than willing to work through this with staff as well as we can. I know that this is a DOT right of way, so we will have some discussions with DOT and what they will or would not allow inside their right of way, but certainly looking forward to working through that with staff.
Thank you, sir. So yes, my final set of questions are about the phasing and timing of phasing as that relates to, we hope, fingers crossed, completion of the Sanford Force Main, and again, fingers crossed, completion of the Chatham Parkway South, which we 2 weeks ago voted to accelerate. So let me see if I can summarize the question, or before the question or answer, summarize my concerns. My objections to this project proceeding as rapidly as it did originally were largely based on concerns for impacts to downtown traffic around the circle. Better than 4,000 new people coming through the circle. No services there inside the development that would allow them to go grocery shopping without having to go through our town circle. And so I really tried to point all of my concerns to the fact that Chatham Parkway South is not complete, and yet this project is proceeding. So how can you help alleviate my concerns that the phasing of this project is also 3/4 of it proceeding before the Chatham Parkway South? Either staff or.
yeah, and I think what may be helpful for you, Mr. Antrelli, or maybe others on the team, is to explain kind of what that phasing schedule would be. I'm sure there's been conversations about the timeliness of Chatham Parkway South. Obviously, with the goal of accelerating it, we're hoping to get that road through quicker than not. And certainly the horizontal work over a piece of property can take some time too. So I think maybe some insight on when homes would be, maybe the first set would be initially CO, certificate of occupancy, that actually creates that demand. Beyond that, it's just traffic of construction, which is certainly a concern. We have a lot of trucks moving dirt in and out of there, and then certainly trying to build homes. Maybe some idea of, when we think of phasing is often tied to the horizontal work because you put the roads and the water and sewer in, then you get your final plat. Once your final plat's approved, then you can start conveying lots to builders, and builders start going vertical. And then, heck, only about 60 days later, they have people in there now, the way as fast as they build houses. So I think maybe Nick or somebody on y'all's team to provide a little insight of what is expected for that first phase of COs to be there, and how that may coincide with the acceleration of Chatham Parkway South. I think that answers your question, Mr. Bonitz.
Yeah, I think we'll hit this one from several different folks on our team here. So the way this project is anticipated to be constructed is to start at phase 1, move into phase 2 and phases 3 and 4. Now, related specifically to Chatham Parkway, that's when you're starting to talk about phases 3 and 4. So I guess what I'll do, well, actually, before I'll call on Chris Raleigh maybe to speak to maybe some ultimate COs, as you had mentioned, the certificate of occupancies for those phases. But yeah, just to note, the Chatham Parkway development is being expedited, and it is anticipated that that will be either under construction or constructed at the time we get to phases 3 and 4 of this project. So maybe I'll kick it to Chris, or maybe perhaps from our team, Brian Inge, if you two remember specifically the dates for COs of phases 3 and 4.
And for whomever answers that question, I think it'd be helpful to specify how many units are in each phase. I mean, I think from a sequential number, it makes sense that it's 1, 2, 3, and 4. But I think having some understanding of, okay, prior to Chatham Parkway South opening and being accessible to our citizens, are we looking at 75 units? Are we looking at 1,000 units? And kind of thinking about those average daily trips that would likely be in downtown, or with a desire to perhaps outside of endpoint destination circumvent downtown and alleviate some of those traffic concerns.
Sure. Chris, maybe before you go, might want to call on Kevin Dean, transportation engineer. As far as the lots go, phase 1 has 254 lots, phase 2, 102, phase 3, 172, and phase 4, 316. But Kevin, can you speak to the need or lack thereof of having Chatham Parkway as associated with this project?
Yes, absolutely. So good evening, Kevin Dean with Killinghorn. We did the traffic study for the full build out of the project. And we discussed that when this initially came through. But the benefit of senior adult housing is that the trip generation for these units is much lower. So compared to traditional single family homes, senior adult housing generates significantly fewer trips. So when we're looking at phases 1 and 2 of the project, which totals around 356 units, being senior adult housing, that's only generating around 100 to 120 total peak hour trips in the morning and the afternoon. So in reality, what we're looking at is something closer to only 2 additional trips per minute for the hour. So not a significant volume of traffic. So not concerned about those volumes being added to the network prior to Chatham Parkway being constructed. But do expect that significant portions of Chatham Parkway South will start to be in place before the development gets to phases 3 and 4. And what hasn't been mentioned, but what was covered in our traffic study and subsequent discussions with the town and N.C.G.S. are construction of turn lanes at site driveways, even where not warranted based on our volumes, to make sure that we're addressing the impact of our traffic on the adjacent network at our site driveways as appropriate. So,
thanks, Kevin. Chris, can you speak to the COs in terms of for phases 3 and 4?
Sure. Maybe by doing that, let me just walk through a quick timeline. There was some discussion earlier about that our project, the construction drawings can't move forward until there's a sewer available to the site. And so if I play out a timeline where sewer is available in, let's say, late 2023, at which point we can get our construction drawings approved, there would be at least a year of development activity. So that would put us in late 2024 before we would even start homes. So the soonest that we would have the first home built would be probably the middle of 2025. And in delivering the first homes in the middle of 2025, that would likely be our model park. So that's when we would start selling, and we would start selling at that point to start closing homes in late 2025. So I think when you play it out from that scenario, if you look at the accelerated Chatham Parkway, which I don't think I can commit to it, but my understanding is it's being talked about as being delivered in late 2024 or 2025. I believe that Chatham Parkway will even be online before we're finished with our first phase. So for us, that's pretty exciting because we'd actually prefer to have that parkway open as well, just because that does solve the same problem that the question's being asked about, which is getting people to some of the conveniences in town without having to route that traffic through downtown. So hopefully that answers the question, but I'll be glad to talk about that further if there's any follow-up.
Well, that is all very helpful and informative. As I read the document, though, the bit that I did read about phasing, again, my apologies, so I'm not able to get through the whole thing, but it says the applicant is not proposing to build this boulevard during phases 1 through 4. It will be built along with the future Del Webb phases to the south, labeled as future development in the submitted plans. So what I've heard from you, Mr. Antilli, is that actually phases 1, 2, and 3 are expected to, or yeah, I think you said that phase 4 would start after the parkway. So I am a little bit confused. Let me ask for whomever.
I will say that in terms of the staff analysis, the information on the Chatham Parkway acceleration has been a moving target. There have been some big updates on that just over the past couple of weeks. So originally when the item was first reviewed, we were presenting to planning board, the situation with Chatham Parkway and the acceleration project was different. And then obviously they've had some good news. The applicants had some good news, and they're going to be able to develop the project a lot faster than they thought. So that's a pro. That's the reason for the inconsistency in the staff analysis, is the situation changed fairly recently.
So Molly or the team on the Dell website, would it be fair to say that the information that Mr. Bonitz just read off is outdated, and the recent action of the board to accelerate Chatham Parkway South is the most current information and would alter the statement that Mr. Bonitz just read?
Yes, sir, that's correct.
Okay.
Could I press Del Webb representatives to rephrase that statement? Because I've heard a couple of different things. So be good to know.
I'm sorry, can you repeat that question? I couldn't quite hear you.
So in staff analysis, there was a statement that the applicant is not proposing to build this boulevard during phases 1 through 4. It will be built along with the future Del Webb phases to the south, labeled as future development in the submitted plans. The reason for that was the prior understanding of the pace of Chatham Parkway South. And I'm now understanding from oral presentations, but not in writing, that actually sounds like Chatham Parkway South will be completed before the first model park homes start selling. And so for my concerns and for those of the public who are listening in who have expressed great concern to me about traffic. Can I have a succinct restatement or suggested edit to that statement? The applicant is not proposing to build this boulevard or phase 1 through 4.
Yeah, I mean, so long as the accelerated Chatham Parkway goes through and all that goes to plan as the latest information has presented itself, we would expect Chatham Parkway to be in place certainly at the time, if not much before, as Chris Raleigh had stated, especially phases 3 and 4 of the project.
Okay. Thank you.
Mhm.
Are there any other questions besides Mr. Bonitz's questions regarding the Del Webb preliminary plat?
I have just one comment. Just read note, and this is for staff. Molly, in our actions, it says the board to review and make the following. It says approve with conditions or deny. I'm curious, we did not see any conditions in our packet. Does the staff have any conditions that need to go along with this project?
No, that's just the options available to you, that if you had conditions that you wanted to discuss, but staff doesn't have any conditions. Those are just the 3 options for decision, either approval with conditions, or denial.
Yeah, I'll leave the conditions up to the professionals. That is you guys. So that is why I'm asking that.
We just
I
recommend
see.
you don't-
Yes.
So we recommend you don't deny with conditions. That's it.
Yes, sir. Yes, staff doesn't have any conditions.
The other, and this is just a comment, just to kind of clarify my mind, is the Chatham Park sewer allocation from the city of Sanford. I assume this is from the force main. Is that correct?
Yes, this is, yeah, exactly right. Yeah, it doesn't
I
have
know
any.
they have been in talks with Sanford, correct? So I just want
Yes.
clarification on that.
From a mechanical perspective, this sewer will end up flowing into the force main. What we have done with the easement across the property, Kent Jackson, our town engineer, has been heavily involved with the engineers on Chatham Park side and on the Del Webb side of looking at how that line, because the line traverses this property. It goes cross country across the Del Webb tract, previously what we referred to as the Townsend tract. And so there will be a sewer pump station at the north end of the property that will take Del Webb sewer, push it into a pump station. It will go to our existing wastewater plant. And when that plant is eventually converted to a big pump, it'll pump northward through the same easement as the larger force main, and then tie in to the greater capacity and then come right back down through its own property.
I believe I did see that pump station on the drawings.
Yeah, it is not, we're not inclined mechanically to, because it seems like, well, why don't you just tie it into the pipe across the property and you'll be good. But generally we like to keep limited access into particularly a force main of that size. Every time you have a point of interaction with it, that's a point of failure that's likely to occur. So we're going to try to keep that larger transmission line going to Sanford pretty much pristine the entire way, with only certain things that may come up in the future. But we're looking at is to pump northward towards our plant on Small Street, put it back into the general population of sewer that we may have, for back a way to put it, and then a pump right back down through the property.
Thank you.
All right. Are there any further questions about the Del Webb preliminary plat? If not, is there a motion regarding that map?
I think I'll just make one final thing rather than a question over preference that it occurs to me that in the course of my life, and I might be representative of others, when we go and visit the grandparents, children in tow, it's often convenient for the children to be outside in near proximity to grandparents' house, playing in a play set or something like that. I hope that such parks and recreation considerations will not be completely minimized, and I hope that amenities like that will be considered for the enjoyment of the grandparents who choose the community.
Yeah, and Commissioner Bonds, I think your comment's more rhetorical
Yeah.
in nature. But if I may respond to a rhetorical question, that's something that Katie and I have been, intent on as well, is understanding what's the use of it. One of the great skills that Katie has, she knows kind of the user tendencies. And we know, looking at other Del Webb projects, that they pay a lot more attention than some projects do to the recreational amenities within those. So we felt confident that those concerns would be accounted for. Now, some of it won't be necessarily all tailored to kids like a traditional neighborhood would be, but we do believe that there will be some there. Obviously, Mr. Raleigh would be much more appropriate to respond on part of this. I won't ask him to respond unless he feels so inclined, but that's one of the things that Katie and I have contemplated when we asked for the fee in lieu, is we don't want to sacrifice something just to put some money in the coffers to displace it somewhere else.
Thank you.
Yep.
Well said.
Make a motion to approve.
Moved by Commissioner Shipp. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Commissioner Farrell. Those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. My understanding of the Pittsboro Advisory Board vacancies and other related appointments has come off of the consent agenda onto old business. And is that for further consideration tonight, or did I hear the manager say that he was going to amend some of those records and that we would look at that another time?
Well, Madam Mayor, if I may, to start with, I think I would want to add the ABC board.
Yes,
And we've actually made that board current. We had a couple of recent appointments
yes.
with Jamie Fiocco and Hugh Harrington of late. So they are current with their appointees right now. So, and maybe that's what, Freudian mind of saying, hey, they're good. I don't need to, I just blocked them out for whatever reason, but I will certainly put them on there. But really, the point of this was just to have a general conversation or a prompt for the board. So I'm certainly welcome Commissioner Bonitz or others to have questions tonight to help us shape this. As it comes with board appointees for your advisory boards, as this board probably knows, and maybe for Commissioner Vose, kind of some of your first forays into some of this, you're not a rookie anymore. You've been on here long enough that you're not a rookie, but and Madam Mayor, you've been on this board before, so everyone else is continuous and you've been on it before. So when you look at these advisory boards, it's oftentimes recycled people. You bump off one board to the other. They're also great incubators for people who eventually run for the seats you're in. A lot of folks, Commissioner Shipp in particular, got started on the planning board, and we tricked them into doing this stuff. So they're great incubators. They're people that carry a very important job for y'all. Each of you serve the general public and are voted by such, but there's also a number of other committees and board functions that help you in making your decision making. And sometimes it's not as prevalent as maybe the planning board is. But when we go through the bicycle plan, that the PARAB is intent on that, and they're providing a recommendation to this board. So they're very, very significant positions in that regard, that you want to make sure that there's people on that board that you trust to give you what the public of this community wishes and desires. And so as we look to appoint members, obviously it's easy for me to point out the vacancies and say, hey, we need to fill some spots. But I would offer that if you know folks, you're obviously more than welcome to reach out to them, run it by your fellow board members. If you need staff to make calls, if you need staff to explain to folks, hey, this is what the planning board does. And sometimes people just say, hey, I want to do something. And they send us a generic application for an appointed board or a letter of interest and say, I don't know what I want to do, but I want to help the town. And whatever capacity that is, I'd like to talk to someone about that. So there's many ways this occurs, but we wanted just to create the prompt for a better conversation. Some of these more pressing than others, as we've talked about. in some recent emails about the future land use plan. That's probably the one that's burning hottest. The planning board, we've got a couple of vacancies there. Fortunately enough, we do have some alternates on that board that have allowed us to stay with a full voting body. But people's lives change, and sometimes they can commit to the full term, sometimes they can't. Sometimes people stay on these things for years and years and years. So again, anything that we can do to help, we're happy to help. And I'll let y'all have the conversation.
Were there vacancies that the board wished to discuss this evening?
I prefer not to. I didn't know this would be told. I'm not prepared to discuss. But it's a courtesy.
Okay.
Okay.
Then can we?
Well, I'll just, since I spoke up on this, I don't know how everybody else feels, but the gentleman that I spoke to has definitely been interested. He's supposed to be on the land use plan also. He's very interested. I don't know all the moves forward to nominate him, but if Charity Mize is not taking the ETJ regular meeting, I would like to just go ahead and nominate Shannon Brady for the planning board regular spot.
And Commissioner Farrell, if I may interject on that as well, all of our ETJ seats have to go through Chatham County.
Okay.
So we'll need the county commissioners. If we have someone that we want to, we can certainly, push that. I'll contact Dan LaMontagne, the county manager, and let him know that. But the county commissioners actually have to approve our ETJ appointments because those residents are actually only county residents. They just happen to be in our zoning jurisdiction, but not in our incorporated limits.
Okay.
But be fine if the board wanted to say, yes, we think Shannon would be a great addition. You can make a vote to that tonight. I can go to the county, see if they ratify it, and it can be fine.
I think it would be a good addition. I know it, and but I think we should check with Charity and see if she's interested in moving.
Right, I agree with that. Yeah. But like I said, he did say he would be glad to take the ETJ alternate.
Commissioner Bonitz, did you wish to bring some questions forward? Or are you honoring Commissioner Shipp's desire?
Out of deference to Commissioner Shipp's statement of preference, I'm happy to those conversations, but I would like us to sooner than later have public conversation about this. I think it's important.
Certainly, I think it's obviously the first meeting supposed to be tomorrow, so I'm interested in moving quickly on this.
All right. Then now we're in a position to amend the agenda to add 2 items of new business, one of which, both of which were discussed in closed session. One of which was a settlement and release with respect to litigation which occurred regarding the Eagles Enterprises and Eagles Management Corporation. And it was discussed under section 143, 318, 11A3, because this dealt with, and we needed the advice of our attorney with regard to the settlement and release that we looked at in closed session. And the second item was a personnel issue under 143, 318, 11A6. And could we therefore amend the agenda to include those 2 items under new business?
So
Moved by Commissioner Shipp, seconded by Commissioner Bonitz. Those in favor of this amendment indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries unanimously. With respect to the Eagles settlement, is there a motion or is there further discussion coming out of the closed session?
And Madam Mayor, if I may, what
Yes.
staff is seeking with this is just Eagles is seeking legal fees in order to close the lawsuit out. And so my recommendation to the board is a motion to accept the fees of $5,000 that will be payable to the attorneys of Eagles, and allow me to execute the release agreement to finally close that lawsuit.
Mhm.
You've heard the essence of what would be the motion.
So moved.
Moved by Mayor Pro Tem Baldwin,
And with only a little bit of work, no, second.
second,
With great gratitude for staff.
seconded by Commissioner Bonitz. Those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries with a small amount of heartburn unanimously. The second item under new business is a personnel matter, and in closed session, we were presented with a letter of resignation from the manager, and it is with deep regret that that we entertain this as a piece of business. And is there discussion or a motion to accept the resignation of Chris Kennedy?
I will make a motion for discussion. It's not negative, but can't show. So I'll make a motion to accept.
Second, discussion.
So for the purposes of the discussion, the Commissioner Shipp moved and Commissioner Bonnet seconded a motion to discuss the resignation of the manager. And so the board is now open for that discussion.
I'll say, I very much appreciate Mary Curry, that you described it. It's with sadness and regret that I find to be acceptable, because I very much appreciate and respect Mr. Kennedy's reasons. So greatly admire his service and 2-year tenure. And very much appreciate your heart and your efforts.
I think that the board in closed session was unanimous in its great admiration, as just expressed by Commissioner Bonitz, of the work that has been done over the last 2 years by the manager, and it is not a dissatisfaction. It is not a it is not anything except just the personal needs of balancing life's skills and tasks, and it is something that we all understand, and it's something that we all admire. That, as I think Commissioner Farrell said, faith and family must come first, and I thought that was a really beautiful way of expressing our support and concern as he goes forward.
Thank you.
I certainly do appreciate it again, Mr. Kennedy, for all that you've done for the town of Pittsboro, and we look forward to consulting with you on issues. But again, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Just to pile on. And
And vice versa. This is, I've really struggled with this decision. I care, hard to say you care too much. I care so much for this position. I feel very honored to have held this position for y'all, to serve y'all, to serve this community, my staff, who I have hopefully pushed to greater things, probably annoyed and frustrated, but all with the mindset of that we serve this community. One of the things that I put in my resignation letter to the board, I don't know how many of you are familiar with the Athenian oath. And it was part of I recommend if you don't know what that is, to look it up. Because it may not age well per se in many ways, but it talks about your commitment to your community. And one of the things, the last sentence of that, and I've excerpted a little bit in there, is that when we come to a place, we are public servants, and when we leave it, it's not less than, but we leave it greater and more beautiful than it was when we got here. And that is no disparagement of what it was when I got here, but we've tried to move the needle every day, and I've worked really hard to move the needle every day. Have we been 100%? Nope. And that's hard for me to accept. I don't like that. I try to preach that everything we do, we try to do it the right way, and we never fail. We are just more or less successful than we thought we were going to be. And if we're less successful, let's figure out why we're not and make it more successful next time. If we're more successful than we thought we were originally going to be, let's celebrate that. This stuff's hard. Policymaking is hard. Governance is hard. It's getting harder every day. And so I'm appreciative to this board and the time I've had with each of you. I'm appreciative to former Mayor Jim Nass and former Commissioner Michael Fiocco, who are part of the hiring committee for me. I can't say any higher regard for my staff. They have helped me be successful in every way I've been successful. It is absolutely intertwined. My success is their success. And so I will miss this. I will miss y'all.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Call the motion.
Yes.
Excuse me, call the vote.
That was, the motion was made by Commissioner Shipp, seconded by you, Commissioner Bonitz. Those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, the motion carries unanimously with great admiration. Our last order of business then is the town of Pittsboro, city of Sanford, wastewater and water utility update, merger, regionalization. And Chris Kennedy, can we call on you for that?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. So this item is just to provide a platform for the board to discuss the latest and greatest with the merger conversations. We continue to, at the staff level, work towards really what we call the investigation of the merger and seeing if this works for both parties. So we've been working, us and the city of Sanford both, working with Freese and Nichols, a consulting firm who y'all are familiar with. They've been involved in all of our water and sewer projects of late, to look at what's the best way to start this project. There's a lot of facets to this, a lot of considerations to contemplate. And so really what we've strived to do with this is look at, in a weird way, what breaks it first. And when we say that, we mean what's probably the most important thing before we get into some of the particulars. You know, stuff like who gets the pickup trucks is not a primary concern at this point. It will be a concern, and we'll definitely have perfect clarity on who gets what. But we felt like that those things will fall into place. And there'll be a point in the near future too where this will become attorney laden. You know, there's going to be attorney review of all the language. And so what we found, and certainly welcome the board's feedback on this, is we feel like because it's been such a topic of interest in the last two budgets we've had, the utility rates are one of the more obvious things to consider. And so we try to look with this is to determine, as part of the investigation, we're looking at debt service, debt ratios, assets, depreciation, things of that nature, but all those insofar as they factor into the rates. We certainly want to know where the capacities are going to be. That's a very, very important concern as well. But the meat and potatoes of this is what are our rates going to do? In fiscal year 21, we approved a 43% increase to the water rate and an 18% increase to the sewer rate. In fiscal year 23, which we're in now, or excuse me, 22 was the other one. Fiscal year 22, 23, the one we just adopted a few months ago, we did a 15% increase to both. We have talked about a water and sewer CIP upwards of $570 million. Somebody's going to have to pay that tab. And, you know, we will still be on the hook for a part of that. We're working really hard right now with staff. We're working through the state revolving fund applications, and we've been successful so far. I think we'll have a really good funding round in September. This board has accepted the strategic position of classifying as a distressed utility, which opens up the door with some of those things. A quick aside on that, just having that moniker assigned to us. In the first round, we didn't have that. So we were capped at $5 million for our ARPA funding through SRF. If you don't have that, there's not the cap is lifted. And so you have access to much more money. And so I think we're trying to be very strategic in how we can find maybe quicker or cheaper money than through the rates, and whether that's for us or with Sanford. And so there'll be a lot of those conversations that mature as we learn more about some of our funding streams. But we talked about before of the 90 and 180 day deliverables, the 90 day of some of the preliminary work. And that work, it's preliminary insofar as we're still seeking feedback from it. It's not like it's half-baked work. It just doesn't have the full complement of information, but you have to provide some in order to get public comment on it and to get board comment on it. Then it's really putting the bow on it 90 days later and having that as a packet. And that's really the hinging decision point to say, hey, are we prepared to make a decision on this? So that's kind of the quick and general overview of the scope of work. Certainly, this is a very important project, and I respect the board's desire to have this as a frequent customer on the agenda to say, hey, we're working on it. Here's some updates on it. And so I think this is just one of those examples. I know there was some anxiety in the ether out there about what this conversation was, and my understanding of it is just to give some information about where we're at and where we think the next milestones are going to be, and go from there. So with that, I'll allow the board to ask questions or provide any feedback, and I may not be able to answer them, but I can certainly work with our teams and answer as best we can.
I read over this a couple times. I think it's a very good start. A lot of good questions. And I had just one, and it may be early on this with this data, but I didn't see much involved in our employees or even what departments might be involved in this merger. Because I'm sure not every department is going to be involved. So maybe next meeting or what, we might have a little more clarification on that.
Yeah, and Commissioner Farrell, so I know I believe you're answering something different than I'm about to respond to, as weird as that sounds. Right now, our staff that we have involved are myself, Kent Jackson on behalf of engineering, and Adam Pickett on behalf of public utilities. And so as we look at how the merger comes to be, we have to understand, one, where the rates are going to be, but there are questions such as, even if we have a consolidated regionalized utility where the lines in the ground are operated and maintained by the city of Sanford, do we need a utility billing office in Pittsboro because our customers live in Pittsboro and their customers live in Pittsboro? So there's some staffing things of that nature that we don't know yet, because we can't presume that people will just be okay mailing everything in, because our customers come to our drive-through now. I anticipate they'll like to enjoy that convenience. So there's some things there we can work with that. We're going to cut our teeth a little bit with that with some of the Chatham Park Water Recovery Center, where we're serving as kind of the administrative arm of that, where we take an administrative fee to operate the billing of the Water Recovery Center. So we'll understand a few of those kinks sooner than not, because they're about to fire that up and be really rolling. So I think that the most obvious would be the utility side, guys at the plant, guys at Diane Street. Diane Street, I think, has some flexibility where, because they serve both general fund and enterprise fund functions. The same guy fixing, the water leak that you referenced before is the same guy putting cold patch into a pothole. So I think we'll have some of that capability there where folks say, hey, I've enjoyed the utility aspect of my job. My job's a utility service specialist, but I actually want to be a street technician for the town of Pittsboro as we shift that over. Which is why I share I'll reiterate the concern again. A lot of my concern is really for the guys at both plants. Even when we're running a big pump, but if you're working a sewer plant, you're kind of in the sewer business. Not that you can't do everything. Those guys, man, they're tremendous. They know how to work on about everything. If my truck was broken down, I'd call them and they'd help me with that, I'm sure. So we want to make sure that people have a place to go. And that's been really important for me the whole time, is that if someone's like, I just want to work for Pittsboro, I think we can have a spot for them. But I know that Sanford's going to need high quality people to run their utility as well. And so if they want to make that transition, I think that's there too. But some of who goes and who stays and what apartments that affects, I think is to be determined.
I guess another thing, because we have numerous employees that have numerous years in the town. If this merger goes through, could it be a possibility that some of these guys in these utilities or ladies, whatever, could still be employed under the town? I know we got great benefits. I have no idea what Sanford has, but I hear a lot of them say, I've been working for the town 10 years, 15, 20, and I hate to lose that. I feel like we're getting a better service from somebody that's a town of Pittsboro employee versus somebody that's a town of Pittsboro employee, but now is a Sanford employee. I know that may make no sense, but I'm old school, Makes sense.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just something that maybe down the road we need to look into.
Well, I may regret this comment. There are many ways to account for that. I do think on the public works side, everybody in this room could probably agree that our right-of-way maintenance, our road patching maintenance, maybe doing some in-house crack sealing, some other things, making sure, signs, right-of-ways are mowed. There's a lot of maintenance stuff that public works is related in that we could do better with. I think we do an admirable job now, but I can drive around and tell you what we could do better for sure. And that's not a discredit to the guys. It's just the demand of the work. If they get split and a water main's broken, guess what's the priority? The water main. That cracked curb can get replaced whenever. But as we continue to grow and certainly acquire more infrastructure, part of the agenda tonight was the resolution to accept 2 right-of-ways in Chatham Park. And so as we get more roads and lane miles, as we get more curb and gutter, as we get everything, there's gonna be more demand. So I think anyone who wants to work will have that. I would also note too that, if there's someone who doesn't transition well, the town can have the ability to discuss kind of a severance package. There are times where communities will look at, usually from an insurance perspective, where they'll say, golly, our insurance is just through the roof because we're carrying a bunch of long tenured professionals and everybody's getting hip and knee replacements and it's ballooning the major medical. There's communities in this state who have said, oh, if you meet these requirements, maybe it's 60 years and 20 years of service or whatever it may be, that, hey, you can go ahead and retire. We'll honor that as full service. So if we get to that point and there's, something that's not arbitrary, but, a measured marker and the board goes, man, I hate to tell someone who's been here for 28 and a half years that they got to move over to Sanford. There's some flexibility there, but it's got to be very precise. But I think we can make that right. Yes, sir.
ahead.
I don't know if this microphone is working now. Sounds like it,
Sounds like it's working.
but I don't know. It is. All right. My wife was asking if she could get that feature at home. But it's working now. So
To mute you or hear you better?
I think to mute,
Okay.
but we'll clarify that later. And I'll just say, I appreciate everything that all the work that's going on behind the scenes for this. It's a big effort. And my biggest concern is that the merger won't go through and that we don't have another plan for sewer capacity and water capacity. So looking forward to the update, the 90-day update, and just really hope this is something that we can, that will work out for everyone, Sanford, Pittsboro, our employees, everyone. And I think it's our option at this point.
Mhm. So I did look at the scope of service, and I think this is excellent in reference to the way it's laid out and us being able to understand what's going on and stages. And I am concerned about the employees, of course, in the wastewater treatment plant as well as the water plant. And I guess that part will come when we look at the assets as well. So,
Yes, ma'am. And I think we could probably say it all day long and it still affects those folks that we have that work so hard for us at the plants and on Diane Street where, when I met with them, I told them, I said, I get that my supposed promises don't put food on your table. They don't pay your truck payment. I get that. And so we are not going into this lightly, thinking that, this is some sort of puppeteering act at the board level and at the manager's office level and that, we're just ignorant to that. I know this board shares that, and I'm staff too. I appreciate the board caring a lot about staff because that will emanate throughout and we want to take care of them. And hopefully there'll be some great opportunities, whether they're with us or Sanford. I mean, we want to look out for our people and have very talented people at what they do. And whether they work hard for us with a Pittsboro logo on their shirt or a Sanford logo on their shirt, I hope that they understand the importance of what their roles are for the greater community. And I really appreciate the board, reiterating that on all of our behalfs, because if you don't take care of your people, it won't work. I don't care how good the policy works. People are going to make it happen.
it's true. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
I just want to say as well to clarify that I appreciate the work that Freeze and Nichols has done for us in the past, and think it's appropriate for them to do this also, especially since they also work for Sanford.
I would just say thanks for making the conversation happen tonight.
Yeah.
I think it's a big, important thing. I think it's probably the most important thing on our horizon. And I'm just glad that we are, as a group, talking about it. So I also care a whole lot about people's jobs, no question about that. And I think they should be protected. But like Commissioner Shipp, I worry about what happens if this deal doesn't go through. So thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I very much echo comments and sentiments from fellow commissioners, and very much appreciate the memo. It helps illuminate what we have to look forward to, and I think you may have put more time tonight, Mr. Kennedy, into talking about rates than the prior conversations, I think. And I think that's the real star on the horizon for me right now. Is looking forward to learning more about that and how that might improve circumstances for our ratepayers here in town in the very near term. But the concerns I have about the condition of our total physical plant, our infrastructure, are deep concerns. And I think that I've been convinced, at least at this point, that a town of our size, even when we reach 60 or 80,000 population from the growth that's coming, I don't believe that we can support the amount of investment and work that needs to be done on our current rate base or even on the foreseeable rate base. And so, we, what was it, a month or two ago that we decided that we would embrace the distressed utility moniker, and I think it's spot on. So I am very hopeful for ways that we might reduce rates for our ratepayers. I remain concerned about the details, the legalities. And, with great respect to Mr. Misc and your many decades of experience, I also hope that we can secure someone with even broader and deeper experience who has seen mergers even larger than this. I would prefer that that person come from outside of the triangle or that firm, so that we can really have confidence in their counsel.
And Commissioner Bonitz, to that one, I appreciate that. When we get to larger scale projects of this scale or size, I do think it's obviously Mr. Misc will be involved, but generally there will, and I presume Sanford would agree that there's going to be some attorneys on both sides where our own attorneys are going to be reviewing their attorneys or an intermediary attorney's work. Much like if you ever work through, a legal claim through the League of Municipalities, Paul's not generally in court arguing it. The league, through our insurance, provides us an attorney, and Paul listens to their attorney, and then he interprets it for me and the board. I think we'll be probably in a similar format. So I appreciate the comment, and I think we will probably end up in that. We haven't engaged the attorneys yet because they tend to roll up a quick tab. So.
I think on rates also, we probably need to prepare ourselves and our ratepayers that the conversation is likely the rate of increase for rates, that it will be hopefully lower with the merger instead of what we would need to do on our own. And I hope eventually, decrease, but I'm not sure that's on the immediate horizon with all of the needs that we have. And this study will tell us that.
Right. What this deliverable is intended to provide to that effect, Commissioner Shipp, is it is be very difficult to say rates are going to go down from where they sit today in the near term. Rates are going to have to go up to pay for infrastructure. What we hope to show with this effort is, your rate is X without a merger, and it's Y with the merger. And that number is, that delta between the two is enough to say this is a valuable investment for the town in terms of its energy to regionalize the system. We do believe that there will be some better economies of scale in working with the city of Sanford. Be it, maybe some bond work or some other types of things that would go into place for some of the infrastructure. That is kind of the point of this original deliverable and the scope of work. Show us what those numbers are. If they're sticker shot to go, holy smokes, that without the merger, the number is really big, and the number with the merger may be too big too. So that's what we figured that was best to probably ferret that out sooner than not, before we start getting into the other details. Let's hammer that out. Obviously, we're still working through a lot of the conversations about the distress utility. That'll affect that. But we feel confident that we can present something to the board that the board will find worthy of investing in terms of a merger, and something that we can proudly show our customers on the utility side, say, hey, we're fixing this. We're securing more capacities. We're improving the utilities. We're modernizing the infrastructure in the ground. And that ultimately we can get to a point where a lot of communities we stop talking about utilities and we forget about it. We just flush our toilets and turn our kitchen sinks on and drink from it. And no one thinks about it. We get away from real estate disclosures and single family home allocations and all those things. You get to be a board like most places have, and you don't even know what your utility stuff does. That's a good place to be.
Any further comments or thoughts on this issue? All right, then I think it was a really good conversation to have, and I look forward to those in the future. And if there's no further business before the board, is there a motion to adjourn?
Just a couple of final comments. If we can do that. We talked previously about the meeting start time, potentially moving that up and then shifting to sort of different meetings at the beginning of the month and end of the month, whichever those are. So I just want to see if we wanted to do that, to move the start time earlier, and then to have, sort of a trend towards, I guess, work session and regular meeting during the month. Chris, maybe.
On a similar note, I would offer, we looked at that a little bit, some of the feedback from the board we had recently, and that's why we had the Dale Webb annexation and the Plat both on consent. It was an effort to say, like, if the board's good and everyone has read it and there's no questions, then just go ahead and adopt it under consent. There's nothing that prohibits you from doing that. And Commissioner Bonitz was spot on. If you have a question, pull it off. We can talk about it. But that's one of those remedies, if you will, of looking at, okay, want to be cognizant of the meeting time. And if the board's good, because again, the consent agenda is for benign things. It literally says it on the document. If it's benign and not controversial, then the board can adopt it. But if you would like to talk about it, then feel free to pull it off and we'll talk about it. And so that's that was a step in that direction this evening with that. But to Commissioner Shipp's point there, if there are other conversation points, meeting times, even, 6:30, we did talk about 6 o'clock. I know Commissioner Bonitz expressed some concern about that with his drive back and his reverse commute. But again, I think staff's willing to explore anything the board wants to. These are your agendas. I propose them to the board and we ask for it to be adopted at the outset, but staff's happy to adjust or calibrate as you wish to make them as efficient as possible. And I would say same goes for staff packets as well. If you ever go through a packet and you don't feel like it was helpful, let's talk about that. The whole point of your staff reports is not because there's some magic template that we have to put things in there. I mean, we could just give you the application to the project and be done with it. The point is for staff to be that translator, to be that conduit between an applicant and the board. So if our staff reports aren't helping you, I'd love that feedback so we can help you. And that changes board by board. The board 2 years ago may have a different opinion of what that help is. And so as we have this board here intact, you may have a different opinion about how staff reports were done. Staff has generally copied what was done before, but something may be different now. So maybe rhetorical for this conversation, but if you have any feedback there, happy to discuss that with staff too.
Given the other changes that are afoot, I would prefer that we defer this question for a quarter.
Sure.
Revisit it in fall or winter. I think we've got an awful lot coming at us. Changing that work pattern, workflow it's not something I'm looking forward to right now.
Sure. I think that makes sense. And I think too, if we can, as we adjust or as we want to adjust the consent agenda, as much notice as we can have is helpful for staff, especially any questions that you develop or receive, if we can get those out so that we can all be prepared for the discussion. But I know that doesn't always, it's not always
I mean,
prior.
for this evening, knowing that we're making that shift, Molly and I talked earlier and said, hey, we're going to put this under consent, but wanted to make you aware that, hey, anything that's on the consent, you got to be ready to talk about. A lot of that stuff is kind of in my purview. But for something like that, and so Molly was ready to go. At least speaking wise, had a little technical difficulty, I think, with the screen, but again, if we put something on there, I don't want the board to feel compelled to have to do it on consent. It's there for your convenience, so we don't have to go through item by item.
All right. Is the board satisfied that we have accomplished tonight's business? And if so, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Moved by Commissioner Farrell, seconded by Commissioner Bonitz. Those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Thank you.